All right. As you can see, Shaun's on the move, like like he always is. This is like to me, this is the perfect picture of Shaun King. I think he's an activist, literally, in everything he does. But he's constantly, to me, he's emotion. Um, Shaun was raised in Kentucky. He attended Morehouse College in Atlanta. He was elected president of student government and was awarded the Oprah Winfrey Scholarship. And then, after college, some of you who followed Shaun know he was a high school teacher in Atlanta. And then he even worked as a pastor and founded a church called Courageous Church. He was a writer in residence at Harvard's Law School's Fair Punishment Project. He contributed to Intercept and to different other magazines and newspapers that you guys have read. He was also, I found out, like Times Magazine's 25 most influential people in the world on the internet.
Donald Trump was on that list as well, though. That's the problem.
Oh no, that's crazy.
Yeah. So influential can be good or bad. So I was on that list of most influential people in the world on the internet, but so was Donald Trump.
Okay. And some notorious people as well.
Yes, yes.
Well, Shaun also, you guys know he started a lot of different nonprofits and campaigns, and he recently launched the Breakdown, his podcast and grassroots law project, organizing and legal expertise to demand justice where needed. And he's also a very vocal activist. And to me, I love how he articulates things and how he's passionate about who he is. But I'm really happy he's here. And those of you who don't know him too, he's got a lot of kids ranging from
Yes.
elementary through college, and I've known them for, I don't know, how many years has it been, Shaun?
Oh man, we moved to Southern California and worked with you, Dave. That was maybe 8 or 9 years ago when we first moved to California. I think.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do the math, but around there.
Yeah, I think we first met at like a Christian conference or something in Atlanta.
Even before that, you and I first met at a conference in Atlanta about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And you were always just a hero to me, of somebody who was blending culture and your own form of activism and social justice. And I was a pastor at the time, and I was a senior pastor at the time, and I was just struggling to find people who were bringing all different types of people and cultures together.
Mm-hmm.
And you were one of the people you were a role model for me in a lot of ways. And social media was still kind of new, and for people around the world to kind of finally see that there were some other weird people trying to do it differently,
Oh man. Yeah, I remember like feeling connected to you as soon as we met, and because I felt someone who literally got beaten up, like when you're not only in like the spiritual world, but even in your own personal life. And so I could relate to some of that. And then you're biracial too, so I felt we could understand each other. But I've been able to see the evolution of who you've become, and I'm really proud of you, Shaun. And you've gone through a lot, bro. And I don't think people
Thank
know.
you, man.
I don't think people know some of your background, so I want to dive into that a little bit, and then maybe
Sure,
talk
Dave.
about some of your activism stuff. Hey,
Yep.
tell us like what has been a couple key milestones of your life that have shaped you, from your early days when you're a youth to today. If you were to list what would those be, and share that?
Man, there are a few moments. I have a book that comes out in August. It was supposed to come out in April before the pandemic hit.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell a lot of my story in there, including a lot of these kind of human milestone moments.
Mm-hmm.
I think first, my mother, and I've talked with you a little bit about my mother before, but my mother was a full-time factory worker in rural Kentucky, and just a sweet white woman in rural Kentucky who taught me in her own simple ways. She was a single mother, but she spoke to me regularly about courage, about fairness. My mother regularly talked to me about standing up to bullies. Even as a little boy, she would regularly tell me to not allow people around me to be bullied. And it's taken me, my mother's been in the hospital over these past few weeks. She's out and is doing better. But
Mm-hmm.
I've been thinking about her a lot. And it's taken me 40 years to understand that a lot of my advocacy and like fighting for people came from little early moments where she told me uh, little things. Like she just told me that if I ever saw anybody being made fun of, she emphasized heavily how disappointed she would be in me if I chimed in. Little things like that. And I realize now that even that set me on a very particular path.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one moment, was just my mother's regular encouragement and love and support, and a level of guidance where she didn't know I would ever be an activist, but she really, really wanted me to be the type of person that stood against the mistreatment of people. And you and I have, where our stories are similar in a sense. I grew up in a place where being multiracial, I was born in 1979, and being multiracial in the 70s and 80s, it wasn't what it is now.
Mm-hmm.
And what I know now in retrospect, and I talk about this in my book, is that my mother knew nothing about what it meant to be Black in rural Kentucky, but she was trying in her own way to prepare me for a world that had racism and bigotry in it.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of lessons that she just wasn't equipped to teach me, but she was trying in her. And I've talked with her some about this. I've had a hard time bridging the gap with some of the conversations with my mother, but she was trying to prepare me for a world where she knew I would be facing a lot of obstacles and challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in elementary school and middle school, I was very much a bridge builder,
Mm-hmm.
and between cultures, between people of different economic classes, and a lot of that came from my own background. But when I got in high school, I found myself ill-equipped to navigate the kind of racial divisions in this rural Kentucky high school in the early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And I started dealing with horrible racism and bigotry from white students at the school right away.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had never been in a physical fight before, and I was having to fight regularly to defend myself. I had one day, I was a freshman in high school, and I had a student literally throw a jar of tobacco spit right in my face. And I was humiliated, and I literally just ran out of the back door of the school and ran home.
Mm-hmm.
I had students chase me in cars through through our neighborhood on the school grounds. I thought they were going to kill me, literally.
Mm-hmm.
And I reported this stuff, Dave, to the principals. My mother would report it to the police, and we got nothing. And then finally, in March of 1995, probably, I've had many pivotal moments in my life, but this was the moment that changed the entire trajectory of my life. In March of 1995, I was a sophomore in high school, and I was just walking to band class. But it was right after lunch, maybe a little bit before noon, and I was walking from one part of the school to another, and a group of students, white students there at the school that I'd had problems with for almost a year and a half, just mobbed me and beat me. And I ended up missing the rest of my sophomore year of high school and all of my junior year of high school from those injuries. I had fractures in my face and ribs. I had severe injuries to my lower back. I had 3 spinal surgeries. And before that happened, I had no plans on being anything like an activist. Or a pastor,
Mm-hmm.
or even I didn't even necessarily see myself as a leader.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be in sports management. I
Mm-hmm.
loved music, and I thought about being in like music management. And that experience where I missed nearly 2 years of school, it was brutal.
Mm-hmm.
And it was physically painful. It was emotionally devastating. I had a therapist that I visited while I was recovering from those surgeries. I was diagnosed with PTSD,
Mm-hmm.
and I just didn't have the skills or support system to find my way through. And
Mm-hmm.
I found there were 2 things that happened because of that experience. It put in me a real heart for people who were hurting physically and people who were experiencing injustice.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've always had just a heightened sensitivity for people in pain, any kind of pain. And it caused me to have a real heightened sensitivity to injustice, having experienced it in a brutal way.
Mm-hmm.
And from that point forward, I always cared deeply about injustice.
Mm-hmm.
But while I was recovering from those surgeries, I had a man who came to visit me, and he was my best friend, Willis, who produces my podcast.
Mm-hmm.
He's a full-time hip hop artist, and he always has been. We were roommates at Morehouse.
Mm-hmm.
I only knew this man as Willis's father, but he was a pastor, and I didn't grow up as a Christian. My mother felt like people in churches would gossip about her as a single mother. She
Mm-hmm.
had children by different men, and so she just didn't feel welcomed in the church. And this man who was a pastor would regularly come and visit me, and he would pray with me,
Mm-hmm.
and it had a profound impact on me. Less than I was listening to his prayers or his words, I just couldn't believe that there was a man who seemed to really care about me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the first time in my life that an adult man was voluntarily checking in on me.
Mm-hmm.
And I found myself wanting to be like this guy. And
Mm-hmm.
I joke, like, had he been a guitar player, I probably would have wanted to be a guitar player. You know, had he been a cartoonist, I would have wanted to be a cartoonist.
Yeah.
He was a pastor. He was a pastor, and
Wow.
I just thought I want to be like, that's who I want to be like.
Mm-hmm.
And I found myself. I still talk to him. He's like a father figure to me to this day, Reverend Willis Polk.
Mm-hmm.
And he's older now, so he sends me like Facebook conspiracy theories and you know, but he's still very much like a father I never had, and those moments changed the entire trajectory of my life. So I still love sports, I still love music, but that those painful moments changed me, and I I have over that was 25 years ago. And over these 25 years, I've always tried to figure out how can I use my life to help people, to fight for people who need the support. How can I use my life to guide people through painful moments? And even my work fighting for victims of police brutality or racism,
Yeah.
a lot of that is all rooted in that one day that changed my life.
Yeah.
And so I just have an understanding of what it feels like to be abused and abandoned. And over these past 25 years, I've had wild successes and failures. struggles and breakthroughs, milestone moments, and just low moments of pain and despair. But I've tried to stay on a similar course of just trying to fight for people and make a difference, you know?
No, I love it, man. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
I hate having to bring it up because it can trigger a lot of emotions, I'm sure.
It, you know, it triggers some, but I've processed a lot of that. You know, some of the pain and ridicule and things that I experience today,
Mm-hmm.
like I see people say on a regular basis horrible things about me.
Mm-hmm.
Those things I haven't processed.
Okay.
And but this thing that happened to me when I was a boy, I've thought through it, I've considered it, told it. It's not it's still real to me, and I had even more spinal surgeries after those 3 spinal surgeries.
Yeah.
Um so it's still very real to me, but I've it doesn't sting me to talk about it. At least that emotional sting is not there anymore.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking about that. I was taking a walk this morning, just pondering your life, since I've known you. And I felt that you're at a different place in terms of your maturity. You had to fight for yourself. And
Yeah.
I feel like you're now at a different place where you have a lot bigger platform. You're able to communicate things. So you don't have to fight in the same way. How's your game changed in terms of how you deal with stuff from when you were younger to now?
It's a good question. Some well there's a huge mistake that I started making in 2014 and 2015
Mm-hmm.
that was probably no different than what I did even when I was a boy. But when I started seeing, well, there's a difference between legitimate criticism. I'm not speaking about that, but when people are really unfair and ugly about me or to me, I found myself in 2014 and 2015 when I started experiencing, again, for the first time in a long time, a lot of bigotry and racism and ugliness online
Mm-hmm.
and offline, death threats.
Mm-hmm.
When I started experiencing that, I found myself, the way I describe it is I found myself kind of flipping switches, flipping off all of my emotions to kind of protect my heart from the pain of it all.
Right.
And so that I wouldn't be devastated by the ugly things that people said about me, I just kind of turned my heart off altogether.
Right. Right.
And I found myself very cold in a way that's not normal for me.
Mm-hmm.
Cold to my family, cold to my friends,
Mm-hmm.
cold to compliments, cold to criticism.
Mm-hmm.
And to protect myself from all of the pain,
Mm-hmm.
I built walls up to protect myself from that.
Right.
And so it started to protect me from the pain of the ugliness, but then it also built up walls around people who loved me and cared about me.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's taken me the past 5 years to figure out, and I'm not nailing it,
Right.
but it's taken me 5 years to figure out how can I guard my heart from the pain of what I see and what people say without building up a wall that keeps me emotionally distant from friends and family and loved ones. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a struggle that I have every day. It's very difficult. And yeah, but I'm trying.
Yeah. I was wondering how you're dealing with that because I was concerned for you because I think there's going to be a greater onslaught of it as you continue down this course, right?
I see it. I wish I could say that it doesn't affect me, but
Mm-hmm.
here, so that I'm not completely distant
Mm-hmm.
from my wife and kids and others, which is that happened to a lot of our greatest civil rights leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Their marriages and families began to really, really struggle,
Mm-hmm.
and including all of our heroes. Many who, had it been more socially acceptable, might have gotten divorces back then, but their marriages and families were struggling.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these leaders became very emotionally distant at home. And and to reel myself back in where I'm not a ghost at home, it's required me to be emotionally vulnerable at home, but also everywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's I've been unable to develop the skill of being impervious to the ugliness outside while being emotionally available at home. It's a difficult balance. I'm either able to be emotionally available everywhere, which then makes all the pain, not just the ridicule about me, but the the cases of police violence and racial violence that I work through every day. I absorb the pain of that, and and I'm more present at home, but I absorb a lot of the pain everywhere else as well. And I struggle with it. I don't, people ask me how do I do it, and it's not that I do it well, not at all. I'm
Yeah.
trying.
Yeah, man. I was just hoping you feel in your spirit, because I know how you will defend people, especially those you love. I mean, you'll die for people. I know that about you. But my heart breaks when you feel like you have to answer everybody, because I feel like there's some people, they just don't need any dignity given to their comments.
Yeah.
I feel like,
I
but
I try not to. I mean, on an average day, I may get hundreds of critiques a day some days. And so every week or so, I may feel pressured to have to respond to something. And I generally don't, unless it goes viral or causes some type of damage to other areas of my life. And then I feel like, hey, I have to respond.
I like to know the spiritual side, because you said you stayed with the music, you stayed with the sports, you love it. What happened to the spirituality side of who you are? Like, what do you do with that right now? Because I don't like to say I'm religious, but I'm spiritual. I care about things of significance, meaning, transcendence, purpose. So what are you doing with the spiritual side of who you are? What do you do to nurture that? And what do you think about that?
Not nearly enough. And I don't say that flippantly at all.
Mm-hmm.
I um I I see the work that I do as fighting for people and justice. I see it as my ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And so I see the work that I do as a type of spiritual exercise, and I feel even supported and strengthened. Like I feel, I don't want to like simplify it to say that God is on my side. That's not a phrase I would use, but I
Mm-hmm.
feel empowered by God to do the work that I do, fighting for people every day. But there is, the daily spiritual disciplines that I wished I had. I just don't have those things in place. And we attend church from time to time before
Mm-hmm.
the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have a lot of friends who are still in the ministry who encourage me and pray with me, and that helps me a lot. And including many pastors that you were friends with and have mentored over the years.
Mm-hmm.
But I struggle with it, and but I struggled with those things even when I was a pastor.
Yeah. Yeah. I get
Yeah.
it. I get it. Hey, in closing, Shaun, I know we got to get going here. give a couple of the life mantras that you live by. Like, you know, when you what keeps you being courageous? What keeps you active? What mantras are going through your head to keep you going, to fuel you?
Yeah. Yeah, there are a few things. You know, even though there are individual families that I've been fighting for years now.
Mm-hmm.
There are families who reached out to me yesterday,
Yeah.
literally, that the injustice and pain they're experiencing, it's new. And I feel in a lot of ways that I owe it to the people that I am fighting for to try to be fresh, to
Mm-hmm.
try to, like, so at a certain time at night, I do cut my phone off. I do try to have some level of boundaries. If I wish I had more time, there's even an exercise that you taught me many years ago where I try to let home be home and work be work.
Mm-hmm.
And but I feel I think regularly about the people that I'm fighting for needing me to be healthy, to be my best,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that if I'm not healthy, that I'll burn out and just not be able to support them the way they need.
Exactly.
And so I just think about the people
Mm-hmm.
and how the pain that they will experience tomorrow or the next day requires me to be a full version of myself.
Mm-hmm.
And that responsibility in some ways helps me not sink into unhealthy habits or into depression. It just, that burden keeps me sharp in some ways,
Gotcha.
and feeling like, not that I yes, I owe it to myself to be healthy, but
Mm-hmm.
I want to be as healthy as I can for the people that I'm fighting for as well.
Right.
And um and I'm also trying to do something. I've become friends with a lot of the families of civil rights leaders who've passed on now, who were either killed or elders who passed away. I've become friends with their children and grandchildren. And I'm actually I'm trying to live a long life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so there are a lot of things that the civil rights leaders who came before me, a lot of things that they were willing to sacrifice, including knowing that it may cost them their life. And I'm willing to take risks that are dangerous, but I also have set up boundaries in a way that I hope allows me to be here 5 years from now, 10 years from now, or longer. And so I think a lot more about my struggle. Has always been, I've become so obsessed with today that it doesn't allow me to think much into the future.
Yeah.
But I've been trying to think a lot more over the past few years about what it would look like to be here for my family 10 years or 20 years from now, and decisions that I should make today if I want to be able to have a legacy and a life with them. So if those, I hope those things are relevant to somebody who's listening or watching, but those are some of the things that I just think through every day.
Hey, Shaun. Hey, thanks a lot, man. You know, as I think,
Yeah.
just tell you before you go, I just hope you know, my love for you is never diminished. I believe
Oh,
in
I
you,
know, man.
and
Thank you, bro.
my heart goes out to you because I want you to feel protected. So, you know, literally when I was walking, I had this vision of who you are right now in your life, and I saw this pipeline of energy going through it,
Mm.
and I saw like this. There was this wall that was separating the energy to go through, but then I saw it burst through. And I
Mm.
feel like, you know, I want you to just be encouraged because sometimes when you're in the middle of it all, you don't know like the breakthroughs that are really occurring. And to me,
That's right.
I feel they're much more magnified than you could imagine. And I want you to feel freedom in that right now and a lot of
Thank
joy.
you, man.
because I want you to celebrate like a lot of the things that you've helped to catalyze. But we believe in you. There's a lot of people, our friends love you and we're supporting you. Any way we can come alongside you, man, let us know.
Thank you, man. Yeah, love you, man, and hope to see you again soon.
Okay, let's talk
Yeah,
later.
take care, Dave. Bye, man.
Later.